My brother dropped the cake I'd brought for him right off the table. Frosting exploded across the patio tiles. He looked at the mess, locked eyes with me, and sneered, "Eat it off the ground." The whole backyard went silent for half a second, then erupted in laughter. My stepmother cut through the noise, ice cold. "I'm erasing your name from this family," she said. My father just kept staring at the grill. I smiled, set down my knife, walked to my car, and drove away. By midnight, my phone showed 58 missed calls. You won't believe what happened next. Before we get into this, hit that subscribe button right now if you've ever had toxic family members treat you like an ATM. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you've ever had to cut ties with family. Your story might help someone else going through the same thing. My name is Jordan Hayes. I'm 25 years old, and that cake-smashing moment was when everything finally clicked into place. Let me back up and tell you how I got there. Because this isn't just about one humiliating incident at a family barbecue. This is about years of being used, manipulated, and financially drained by people who were supposed to love me. I grew up in North Carolina with my dad Robert and my younger brother Carson. When I was 12, Dad married Lindsay, and she brought this whole new energy into our house. At first, I thought it was great. She seemed fun and outgoing. But pretty quickly, I noticed that Carson became the golden child. Everything revolved around him. "Carson needs new cleats for soccer," Lindsay would say, and suddenly $200 appeared. "Carson wants to go to that expensive summer camp," and Dad would pull out his credit card without hesitation. Meanwhile, when I asked for help with $20 for a school trip, I got a lecture about financial responsibility and earning my own way. By the time I was 16, the pattern was crystal clear. Carson got, I earned. Carson deserved, I should be grateful. Carson needed, I should figure it out myself. I started working at 16, saving every penny I could. I paid for my own car, my own insurance, my own everything. Dad and Lindsay praised me for being so independent and self-sufficient. Looking back, I realized they were just relieved they didn't have to spend money on me. I went to community college because that's what I could afford. Lived at home, worked full-time, studied whenever I could squeeze it in. I graduated with my associate degree in hospitality management and landed a decent job as an assistant event coordinator in Raleigh. Nothing glamorous, but it was mine. I got my own apartment, a small one-bedroom that I furnished piece by piece from thrift stores and clearance sales. I was proud of what I'd built on my own. That's when the requests started. It began small. Dad called me one Tuesday evening. "Jordan," he said, his voice all casual and friendly. "Carson needs help with his car insurance this month. Could you spot him $300? We'll pay you back next week when Lindsay's boutique payment comes through." I should have said no, but he was my father, and Carson was my brother, and family helps family, right? I sent the $300. Next week came and went. No repayment. When I brought it up, Dad acted offended. "You're really going to nickel and dime your own brother?" he said. That was the first red flag I ignored. A few months later, Dad called again. This time, it was about a beach house. He and Lindsay had found this amazing property in Virginia Beach. 4 bedrooms, ocean view, the whole family could use it as a retreat. The only problem was they needed someone with good credit to co-sign the mortgage. "Just temporary," Dad assured me. "Just until Lindsay's business picks up and we can refinance in your own name. This will actually help your credit score," he added. I was 22 years old and stupid enough to believe him. I co-signed on a beach house I would never use for a family that saw me as a bank account with a pulse. The monthly mortgage was $2,400. Dad promised they'd cover it all. But somehow, every few months, there was a shortfall. Lindsay's boutique had a slow quarter. Dad's construction business had unexpected expenses. They needed me to cover $800 this month. Just this once. Except it was never just once. I ended up paying that $800 every single month, plus covering their shortfalls whenever they came up short. Over 3 years, I paid an extra $21,000 on a house I didn't own and couldn't even visit without being made to feel like a guest. But it didn't stop there. Carson, who was now 20, decided he needed a new car. Not just any car, but a fully loaded black SUV with every premium feature. He'd totaled his last car, the one Dad had bought him, because he was texting while driving. Instead of facing consequences, Carson got an upgrade. Dad called me with the request. "We need you to co-sign on Carson's auto loan," he said. "Just to get him approved. You won't have to pay anything." Another lie I believed. The monthly payment was $512. Within 6 months, Carson had missed multiple payments because he kept modifying the car instead of paying the loan. The bank came to me first since my name was on the title. I ended up covering $1,200, then $1,500, plus insurance increases when Carson added expensive modifications. Total money I lost on that car over 2 years was about $30,000. So let's do the math here. $21,000 on the beach house. $30,000 on Carson's SUV. Add in the random credit card charges they put on my emergency card for Carson's textbooks or Lindsay's boutique supplies. All told, I'd given my family over $60,000 by the time I was 25. $60,000 I'd worked my ass off to earn. $60,000 I would never see again. And did they appreciate it? Did they thank me? Did they treat me with any respect? No. They treated me like their personal ATM, and when I didn't dispense fast enough, they got annoyed. The only person in my family who saw what was happening was my Aunt Helen. To at least acknowledge that what just happened was wrong. He just stood there by the grill, spatula in hand, staring at the meat like it was the most interesting thing in the world. That's when something inside me just clicked. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I calmly set down the knife I'd been holding, walked past the table, and got in my car. Aunt Helen, who'd been quiet in the corner the whole time, slipped into the passenger seat without saying a word. Honey, she'd say, there's a difference between helping and being used. I didn't want to hear it. But she kept showing up, kept asking questions, kept planting seeds of doubt. The breaking point came at Carson's 22nd birthday party. It was a big backyard barbecue at the beach house, the one I was still paying for. Lindsay had gone all out with decorations, catered food, an open bar for the adults. I showed up with the expensive cake I'd ordered from Carson's favorite bakery. Chocolate with vanilla buttercream, his favorite. Cost me $85, which was steep, but I wanted to do something nice. When I arrived, Lindsay barely acknowledged me. "Oh, you made it," she said, not even looking up from arranging the gift table. I put the cake on the dessert table and started to mingle. That's when I noticed Carson's new dirt bike parked by the garage. "How'd you afford that?" I asked him. He shrugged. "Dad put it on your emergency credit card," he said casually. "Said you wouldn't mind." My emergency credit card. The one I'd given Dad access to years ago for actual emergencies. They'd charged $4,200 without asking me. I felt my chest tighten, but I pushed it down. This was Carson's party. I didn't want to cause a scene. The party went on. Everyone was drinking, laughing, having a good time. I was nursing a soda and trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. Then came time for cake. Lindsay called everyone over to the dessert table. I stood back, watching as she made a big show of lighting the candles. Carson started to lean forward to blow them out, but then he paused. He looked at the cake, then at me, and this weird expression crossed his face. "You know what?" he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I don't even like chocolate anymore." Before I could respond, he reached out and pushed the entire cake off the table. It hit the patio tiles with a wet splat, frosting exploding across the stones. Everyone froze. Then Carson looked directly at me and sneered. "Eat it off the ground," he said. The backyard was silent for maybe half a second. Then people started laughing. They actually thought it was funny. Lindsay's voice cut through the laughter. "I'm erasing your name from this family," she said coldly. "You've never fit in anyway." I looked at my father, waiting for him to say something. To defend me. "Honey," she'd say, "there's a difference between helping and being used." I didn't want to hear it. But she kept showing up, kept asking questions, kept planting seeds of doubt. The breaking point came at Carson's 22nd birthday party. It was a big backyard barbecue at the beach house, the one I was still paying for. Lindsay had gone all out with decorations, catered food, an open bar for the adults. I showed up with the expensive cake I'd ordered from Carson's favorite bakery. As I pulled out of the driveway, I could see them in the rearview mirror. Already back to partying, already moved on, like I'd never been there at all. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. I glanced at it. Carson. I declined the call. It rang again. Lindsay. Declined. Then Dad. Declined. By the time we got on the highway heading back to Raleigh, my phone had 14 missed calls. Helen finally spoke. "You know this isn't new," she said quietly. "They've been pulling this for years." I kept my eyes on the road, but I nodded. She was right. This wasn't new. It was just the first time I couldn't ignore it anymore. Helen started going through the history. "Remember when Carson wanted that dirt bike years ago?" she said. "Your dad put it on your credit card, the one meant for emergencies. You paid it off while Carson wrecked it within weeks." I remembered. "And the down payment on the beach house," Helen continued. "You co-signed because Robert said it was temporary, just until Lindsay's business picked up. That promise aged like milk. The exit for Raleigh appeared ahead. I merged right, my hands tight on the wheel. They treat you like an ATM with a pulse, Helen said. Carson gets the new SUV because he needs reliable transport. Meanwhile, you're still driving the same sedan from college. We pulled into my apartment complex just after midnight. The parking lot was quiet, security lights buzzing overhead. I killed the engine and just sat there for a moment. Helen unbuckled but didn't move to get out. You don't owe them your future, she said firmly. Not one more dollar. Inside my apartment, I went straight to my office nook. Helen followed, flipping on the lamp. I opened my laptop and pulled up a spreadsheet I'd been maintaining for years. Family finances, the folder was labeled. I'd tracked every penny I'd given them, every payment I'd covered, every shortfall I'd filled. The numbers stared back at me, cold and clear. First tab, the beach house mortgage. $2,400 a month. My share, $800, automatically withdrawn on the first of every month. But I'd also covered their shortfalls during slow quarters at Lindsay's boutique. Grand total, $21,000 extra. Second tab, Carson's SUV. Monthly payment, $512. I'd covered missed payments, $1,200 here, $1,500 there, plus insurance increases for his modifications. Total out of pocket, $30,000. Third tab, miscellaneous charges. The emergency credit card I'd given Dad. Carson's textbooks, Lindsay's boutique supplies, random expenses they'd charged without asking. Another $9,000. I sat back and stared at the summary cell. Total amount given to family over 3 years was $63,800. $63,800. That was more than I'd spent on myself in the same period. That was a down payment on a house. That was a new car paid in full. That was financial security I'd sacrificed for people who just told me to eat cake off the ground. Helen looked at the screen over my shoulder. Jesus, she whispered. That's when I made my decision. I'm done, I said. Tomorrow, I'm removing myself from every financial obligation tied to them. Helen nodded slowly. I'll help you, she said. Do you have a lawyer? I didn't, but by sunrise, I did. Helen connected me with Marcus Kane, a family attorney she'd used during her own separation from toxic relatives. Mr. Kane's voice was calm and professional when we spoke. First thing, he said, we need to document everything. Every payment, every text, every promise they made and broke. I sent him the spreadsheet. Within an hour, he called back. This is actually straightforward, he said. You're a co-signer, not the primary borrower. You can petition to have your name removed from both loans. Given the payment history showing you've been covering their obligations, a judge will likely approve. What about the money I've already paid? I asked. That's gone, he said bluntly. Unless they voluntarily repay it, which based on this history seems unlikely. But we can ensure you're not liable for any future payments. The process took 6 weeks. During that time, my phone never stopped ringing. Carson called 17 times the first day. Dad called 23 times. Lindsay sent dozens of texts, ranging from apologetic to furious. Come back, we'll talk about this, one text said. You're being selfish and ungrateful, said another. How dare you abandon your family, said a third. I didn't respond to any of them. Mr. Kane filed the petitions in court. I provided documentation of every payment I'd made, every shortfall I'd covered, every promise they'd broken. The judge reviewed the case and granted both petitions. My name was removed from the beach house mortgage and Carson's auto loan. The bank notified them that they now had 90 days to refinance in their own names or face foreclosure and repossession. Mr. Kane also helped me file a police report about the unauthorized charges on my credit card. That card was supposed to be for emergencies only, and they'd racked up over $9,000 without my permission. The credit card company investigated and reversed most of the charges. I also changed the locks on my apartment, updated all my passwords, and opened new bank accounts that no one in my family had access to. I blocked their numbers on my phone. All of them. Dad, Lindsay, Carson. I kept Aunt Helen's number, but everyone else was cut off. The only way they could reach me now was through Mr. Kane, and he had strict instructions about what to forward to me, which was basically nothing unless it was a legal document requiring my signature. 3 weeks after the court order, I got an email from Mr. Kane. Thought you'd want to know, it said. The beach house has entered foreclosure proceedings. They missed the 90-day deadline to refinance. A week later, another email. The SUV was repossessed from a strip mall parking lot. I sat at my desk, staring at those emails, waiting to feel something. Satisfaction, maybe. Or guilt. but all I felt was relief. A weight I'd been carrying for years had finally lifted. Around the same time, something else happened. My job offered me a promotion, senior event coordinator, with a significant raise. I'd been working toward this for 2 years, but the timing felt almost cosmic. The same week I cut ties with my family, my career took off. The raise meant I could finally start saving properly. I opened a retirement account that I'd been putting off because I couldn't afford it while funding my family's lifestyle. I started a travel fund. I began planning a solo trip to Europe, something I dreamed about since college but could never afford. I hired a financial advisor who helped me create an actual budget and savings plan, one that accounted for my future, not my family's current wants. Within 6 months, my emergency fund hit $6,000. My travel fund had $3,000. My retirement account was growing steadily. I was 26 years old and finally building the life I'd always wanted. The life I would have had years ago if I hadn't been bankrolling people who didn't appreciate it. My coworker Skylar noticed the change in me. "You seem lighter," she said one day over lunch. "Like you're not carrying the world anymore." I told her everything. The cake incident, the court case, cutting off my family, the whole story. Skylar just nodded when I finished. "Good," she said firmly. "You did the right thing. Toxic is toxic, even when it's blood." That validation meant more than I expected. For months, I'd been second-guessing myself, wondering if I was being too harsh, if I should have given them one more chance. But hearing someone else confirm that I'd made the right choice helped silence those doubts. About a year after Carson's birthday party, I got a text from an unknown number. Virginia Beach area code. The message was short. "I'm sorry for everything." It was from Carson. I was at a client dinner in Charlotte when it came through. I excused myself and stepped onto the hotel balcony. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances what had happened to them. The beach house had been auctioned off for less than they owed. Lindsay had filed for divorce, citing financial ruin. Dad had moved to a small one-bedroom rental. Carson was couch surfing with college friends, his credit destroyed. The empire they'd built on my financial foundation had collapsed the moment I removed myself from it. I stared at Carson's apology text for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to tell him exactly how much damage he'd caused, how much money I'd lost, how much respect I'd been denied. But I realized something important. He already knew. The consequences of his actions were teaching him lessons that my words never could. I deleted the text and blocked the number. No anger, no satisfaction, just closure. That night, back at the client dinner, I signed a contract for my biggest event yet. A corporate gala with $1 million budget. It was the kind of opportunity I'd been working toward for years. The kind of opportunity that would have been impossible if I'd still been draining my accounts to support my family. 2 years after the cake incident, my life looks completely different. I'm 27 now, a senior event planner managing high-profile clients and celebrity events. I've traveled to Paris, Barcelona, and Rome on trips I saved for myself. I bought a new car, nothing fancy, but reliable and fully paid off. I'm dating someone wonderful who comes from a healthy family and can't comprehend how mine treated me. My savings account has more money than I've ever had in my life. And I sleep better at night knowing I'm not one emergency away from my family draining everything I've built. Aunt Helen and I have dinner every month. She's the only family I need. She was right about everything, and I tell her that often. Sometimes I think about that cake-smashing moment. Carson's sneer. Lindsay's cold declaration. Dad's silence. And I realize it was the best thing that could have happened to me, because it forced me to finally see what Aunt Helen had been trying to show me for years. That I was being used. That my family saw me as an ATM, not a person. That love isn't supposed to come with payment plans and co-signed loans. Cutting ties with toxic family is one of the hardest things anyone can do. The guilt is overwhelming. Society tells us that family is everything, that blood is thicker than water, that we should forgive and forget. But sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes, the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. Sometimes, setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's survival. I don't regret cutting them off. Not for a second. Every dollar I save now is mine. Every opportunity I seize is mine. Every bit of peace I feel is mine. They can't take it from me anymore. Carson's apology came too late to matter. If he'd been truly sorry, he wouldn't have treated me that way in the first place. An apology after you've faced consequences isn't remorse, it's regret that your actions caught up with you. There's a difference. For anyone listening who's in a similar situation, here's what I learned. Document everything. Every payment, every promise, every conversation. You'll need it if you ever want to legally separate yourself from financial obligations. Get a lawyer who specializes in family law. It's worth the expense. Mr. Kane cost me $3,000, but he saved me from decades of continued financial abuse. Don't feel guilty for protecting yourself. Setting boundaries isn't punishment, it's self-preservation. Block their numbers if you need to. You don't owe them access to you just because you share DNA. Find your people. For me, it was Aunt Helen and my coworker Skylar. Surround yourself with people who see your worth and don't try to extract value from you. Invest in your future, not their present. Every dollar I gave my family was a dollar I couldn't invest in myself. Now, every dollar I earn builds the life I actually want. And finally, understand that consequences are the best teachers. My family lost the beach house, the SUV, their comfortable lifestyle. Not because I punished them, but because they couldn't sustain it without using me. That's not my fault. That's theirs. The cake Carson dropped on the patio that day represented more than just a dessert. It represented years of disrespect, years of being taken for granted, years of being valued only for what I could provide. When he told me to eat it off the ground, he was saying what they'd all been thinking for years. That I was beneath them. That I existed to serve them. That my feelings, my money, my future didn't matter as long as theirs was secure. Walking away from that party was the hardest and best decision I ever made. By midnight, I had 58 missed calls from people who suddenly realized they couldn't function without my money. Not my presence, my money. That tells you everything you need to know. Today, I'm building a life on my own terms. A life where I'm valued for who I am, not what I can provide. A life where boundaries are respected, not trampled. A life where the only person I'm responsible for is myself. If you're in a similar situation, if your family treats you like an ATM, if you're constantly being asked to sacrifice your future for their comfort, please hear this. You deserve better. You deserve to keep what you earn. You deserve to build your own life. And walking away from people who refuse to see your worth isn't selfish. It's self-love. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're doors to the life you deserve. Open yours without apology. Hit that subscribe button if this story resonated with you. Share it with anyone who needs to hear that it's okay to put themselves first. And remember, the best revenge isn't hurting them back. It's building a life so good they can't touch it. This is Jordan Hayes, and that's my story. Thanks for listening.